Hi, my name is Noel Bell. Today I'm chatting with Asher Quinn, transpersonal psychotherapist, independent music professional and shamanic healer. In the interview we discussed, amongst other things, his early involvement with Nigel Hamilton at CCPE, which is the Counselling Centre for Psychotherapy Education in London, which this year celebrates 30 years in existence. We started the interview by Asher explaining what psychotherapy means to him.
As a place where you can unconditionally come and be yourself and tell your truths confidentially in order to know yourself better, and especially if you've got any problems like relationships or depression or anxiety or addictions or phobias, all the stuff that we have, those are there's a purpose behind the problems. Those are the things that start us off getting in touch with ourselves, with our truth, which then makes us feel better. Mm-hmm. Then we have a better life, a better understanding. The transpersonal approach, it's not really as in, here's a quick fix, here's an affirmation or a behavioural or a cognitive tip. Helpful as they are, the kind of therapy I would offer is much deeper. So that it's not a quick fix. It really is, you go into the meaning of your life, into the events and the incidents in your life, the history, your dreams, your fantasies, your symptoms. You go into it with a view to emerging with an integrated sense of self-awareness that sets you up in a much better way and gets you going where you need to be going.
Beautiful. So, why CCPE?
Well now. It was the 1980s, and I was a young man in the 1970s, really kind of looking for a purpose, and I was creative. I did a literature degree, and I wanted to be a songwriter, singer-songwriter. But I was looking for meaning, so I always had really a spiritual ethos. And I went to America on a hero's journey, really. It was to find spirit, to find truth. Mm-hmm. And I found a Sufi teacher. So this was all intuitive, this all worked out as if it was orchestrated. And I found a Sufi teacher from Baghdad who was in America with a troop of people, that initiated into spirit. So that completely changed my life. So that was 1979, 1980. Mm-hmm. And I began to write proper songs that had depth and had meaning. And prior to that, I'd briefly worked in an advertising agency and hated it. Copywriting, ludicrous shit. So then I came back to England in the early 80s and tried to develop a career as a songwriter, but it was a real struggle. Mm-hmm. So I was rejected. I think there was a tally, 167 rejections at one point. And I became very vulnerable about what to do now, having been initiated into spirit, but still in my early 30s by now, how to craft this. Mm-hmm. And I then came across a Sufi centre in London, quite by chance, through a friend. And that turned out to be Nigel Hamilton, who was running the Sufi centre, and who had just begun a training.
And this was before Little Venice? This was
Yes.
The original building?
This was the original building.
Yeah.
So I think I found him in 1986, and he'd only been going since 1984.
Yeah.
As a training, so it was the third year of the training, but he'd been going as a Sufi centre for a little longer than that. So it was because I was looking for more Sufi continuity. So I went along, and it was a Monday evening at this house off Portobello Road, in Lancaster Road, and I wondered about it, because it was a lot of very nice, well-meaning people with big smiles, and I thought, is this a cult? Is this a Mooney kind of thing? Am I being recruited by the Moonies? But there was some very beautiful stuff that Nigel himself sort of taught, and then we did a kind of singing and dancing thing, and that was quite hilarious. Nigel plays a bit of the guitar left-handed, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of,
The Lord of the Dance.
the Lord of the Dance and that sort of thing. And I thought, it did feel good in my heart, but it was also slightly cringe-making, you know, the eagerness.
Yeah.
And so I thought, how do I actually feel about this? And I thought, okay, my heart says yes. So I went and became involved with it, and then I began to do more extended Sufi path. You know, I did lots of retreats, guided retreats. So, you know, Nigel was tremendously helpful and influential during the 80s. And then I thought, well, you know, I could actually train to be a psychotherapist because I have it within my remit. You know, I seek this kind of self-awareness for myself, and I have it there within my grasp. I think I could help people as well as help myself. So, and the training was affordable. I had looked into a Jungian training which cost £17,000 or something like that, which I didn't have at all. You know, I was just doing odd jobs, really, cleaning and being a waiter and cheating on benefits and things like that. And so I thought, but the training was affordable, although still beyond my reach. And what Nigel did was he says, well, you work in the office to pay your fees.
Right.
So I worked in the office. You know, I did admin as well, and I did the Sufi thing, and so I did the training, and it was in its early stages, and it was intensely exciting. You know, 3-year training, the spiritual dimensions of psychology. And it was, you know, I realised as I came to do it that it was full of Sufi stuff. It was full of Rudolf Steiner stuff, essentially. You know, so it's full of a lot of traditions coming together. And it was very exciting and very thrilling. There were 26 of us.
And what year are you talking about there for the actual training?
I started in 1987, January 1987. So I think it would have been the 4th year of the training.
Okay.
And in my year was Alan Pimentel,
Right.
and
with his stories of Echelon
and all that, yes. And so
Phil Parkinson.
Phil Parkinson was a junior.
Right.
He was in one of the years later. So Susie Sanders even came later. The only one that was older than me then was Tamara.
Ah,
Yeah.
right.
Of the ones that have survived, you know. So Tamara was there, but our year sort of brought with it quite a few people that went on to teach, and so I did the training, loved it, got the qualification, did the supervisor's training, then did a transpersonal training with one of the lecturers. One of the guest lecturers had her own training, Barbara Summers, Ian Gordon Brown. So I did their training. So I got a diploma and all that I needed by 1991, during which time Nigel was very single-minded and focused, and he got the place moved to Little Venice, and he started to get it fully accredited. There was because we were asked by Brenda to sort of, if there's a story that this is Noel, he's doing an interview.
She or he? He probably thinks, who's this strange man?
Lupin. He doesn't expect to see equipment. So during the 90s, I quickly began seeing clients and teaching and being very much part of the CCPE. But also during the 90s, as I became more developed, I realised that there was an ideological clash with Nigel, which was around the idea that there's no the shadow wasn't present sufficiently, and too much of the teaching was sentimental or could veer into the sentimental. So I left and just became independent.
And had at that point, 2004, had you already developed a private practice?
Yes, oh yes.
Separate from CCPE?
Yes, I had, and I've never needed to advertise. But nevertheless, I mean, I've got 2 kids, and I'm the sole provider, and wife and 2 kids, and I was very dependent upon the CCPE. You know, most of my referrals came through the CCPE. I was paid a wage, albeit very small, you know, to lecture and teach, and it was very low wages, but you did it for love, really. But my whole structure was tied up with the CCP, so to decide to leave, and if really I was invited to leave, you know, it was kind of, that's the highway, really, was quite scary, you know, because of the threat to income. But actually that didn't materialise. I just replaced it with my own independent workshops, and I was invited to teach by other people, and my client practice increased. You know, I could charge more money as well. So, and I just moved down the road to Violet Hill Studios, which is a mile down the road in Maida Vale.
Okay.
Where I've been for 10 years.
So do you call yourself now a transpersonal practitioner therapist?
Yes. Transpersonal and Jungian. It's shamanic, essentially, what I do, so I'm more able now to own and describe that. Describe where the shamanic meets the transpersonal, and it depends who I'm talking to, you know, with how I would present myself.
I mean, if we think about your sense of an integrative approach, without, if it's not too much of a mindfuck question, what do you take from analysis, from humanism, Rogerian, from existential, and where do you bring that into the shaman approach?
I don't think I've got necessarily a helpful answer, because my immediate answer is that what I've distilled, so all the influences, as you say, that all the psychological influences that I've learnt about and been exposed to, worked with, including Jung, all of those, and all the spiritual traditions, the Sufi and the Kabbalah and Taoism, bits and pieces, all of that, plus my own life story, which predates all of the training, sort of put all of that together, and where I get to when I'm actually sitting with a client and tuning into them and listening to their story, and sometimes, you know, it's, I feel like a news broadcaster, so I've got an earpiece, and there's information coming in from my intuition that's kind of saying, gives me ideas, where all of that comes from, and it's the same place I go to find the songs that I write, is the Christ impulse. So that's not in a Christian sense, not in any organised religious sense, but I'm channeling the Christ impulse. And the closest approximation I've got that has a language that conveys that idea is the visions of Rudolf Steiner. I would say that there's a lot of it sort of comes to rest in that. And that's been entirely intuitive. It's been guided, and it's been a conflagration of influences. But when I'm actually sitting with a person, I'm not thinking Rogers, and I'm not thinking Jung. I'm just actually with them heart to heart, and I'm guided by what's unfolding in their soul. A lot of the transpersonal approach that Nigel taught is the language of that. So a considerable amount of that is the language of that I've just described. But I couldn't go to the UKCP or the BACP and they say, well, you know, what's your discipline? And I say, well, it's the Christ impulse, you know, this. I couldn't do that. So it's interior, you know, but that's the truth about how I operate.
Yeah. So when you said you didn't advertise,
yes,
how did your practice develop?
My boyish charm and good looks. Well, it's just, I mean, I think at the centre I was quite outspoken, quite charismatic, quite funny, and good. I was good, really good at what I did, and so I did a lot of lectures and workshops, and they were good. So a lot of people came through just experiencing me, saying, "I want to work with you. You know, you tell the truth, I think you can help. So that's how it happened. But then, intriguingly, since I left the CCP, that's also how it's happened. People come. I don't know how they come. No, they come. I mean, I have got a website, and therefore it's on the Google ranking. So if you Google St John's Wood and Maida Vale and Putney, I would come up. But it often isn't. Very rarely is it like that. So people come because they said, someone told me about you, but my songs are out there as well. People often come because of my songs. So and it's difficult because as a therapist, you ideally in the traditional sense, you'd have a blank canvas. No one would know about who you were. So but people do know. So I attract the people that have a sense of the profile that's my profile that's out there, and they come because they want to work with that. So and I think it's a Christ thing. I do think it's a Christ thing. It's like they come because they want to reconnect with something that they have a longing in their soul, and they sense in me that I can be a shepherd and a guiding spirit in that way. So that's how they come.
So in terms, and I don't want to get too intellectually psychobabbling, but if you think of Dr. John Rowan and Ken Wilber, and they talk about spectrums of consciousness, and we can throw in Maslow and others around levels and states of consciousness. Do you think people come to you because they've already had some sort of transformation on that journey of psycho-spiritual development?
2/3, but 1/3 no.
So they might be atheists potentially.
Oh yes, and I never sell. I never sell any ideology or anything. So I work with atheism. That's. And I don't. I wouldn't necessarily explain my sources. If that's not helpful to the person. Often people come because they're artists, they're creative people, they're soul seekers. So I rarely get businessmen in suits.
Right.
But that's not exclusively. So I get quite a lot of people in the finance sector who wish they were poets. And I get couples, and I get people occasionally who are completely unawakened, but they have the facility for it. They're sort of the natural child, the archetype of the divine child will come, and they're not awake.
But do you think everyone has that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. So then it's a question of it's magnetism. You find the energy that corresponds mostly with your configuration. But I do get some people who have no psychological language, but they just talking to them, they have a soul language. So I can help them articulate that and have confidence and believe in that. And often these people are fighting with their families who make them the problem child.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because just for the purposes of the interview, we'll set it in context. We're sitting on a rainy day in the fall, as the Americans say, in the autumn. I left the station at Putney, and there was this sort of miserableness hanging in the air. At least that's what my projection into it was. It's raining, it's cold, it's grey. But I was sort of mindful of, I'm not saying I get this all the time, but the serenity of the flow of leaves at this time of year. And we talked about the fire quality, but also, isn't it nice sometimes, rain? So, I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say is, the Buddhists talk about mental force, and in a way that was kind of an interjection of mental force, where I thought, no, I'm not going to be miserable just because it's raining, and maybe because I just forgot my brolly. I'm going to get a bit wet, so what? So, do you think there's an element of mental force in our happiness, for whatever happiness is?
For sure. It's mindfulness, isn't it?
Mm.
And but it's the ability and the confidence and the permission to put that into practice that's the thing. The people have it embryonically, but not always the belief system or the confidence to enact it. And so a lot of the work that I would do would be helping people separate out from the dogmatism of their culture or their family or their parents, so that they're actually able to be free to choose how to be, and to connect with their heart. You know, so you were able to kind of see the flow and the leaves and rejig yourself, you know, or just nudge yourself into an integrated state. A lot of people find that really hard to do, you know, as if that, you know, they feel they ought to be miserable, or they've got a script that makes them turn towards that. So it's just helping to rejig that. So a lot of the work I do is helping people take permission to get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like an obvious question, but is music a way of you connecting?
Yes. Music is my passion and my calling. But actually it's not music. Music is the form only. I feel my sense of purpose is to be a messenger. So it's a Mercury Hermes figure. I'm the postman. You know, I deliver messages of love from the higher self. And music is the form that I do that, but then therapy is as well, because I'm able to work with people and over time help them to realize their own messages of love that are coming through their dreams and through their synchronicities and fate patterns and that.
Stir it up, little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby, come on and stir it up. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. It's been a long, long time, yeah, since I got you on my mind. Now you are here, I say, it's so clear to see what we can do, honey. Just me and you. Come on and stir it up. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. Come on and stir it up. Yeah, yeah. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. Yeah, I'll push the wood, and then I blaze your fire, and then I'll satisfy your heart's desire. I said I stir it every minute. All you gotta do, honey, is keep me in it. Stir it up, little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby, stir it up. Yeah, 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 yeah. Little darling, stir it up. Oh, yeah. Come on, baby. Quench me when I'm thirsty. Come on and cool me down when I'm hot. Your recipe, my darling, is so tasty. When you show and stir your pot, oh yeah, come on and stir it up. Little darling, stir it up. Oh yeah, yeah. Come on, baby, come on and stir it up. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby, come on and stir it up. Stir it up. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. stir it up now. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. Come on and stir it up now. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. Come on and stir it up. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby.
Quinn is an adopted name of mine. It's not my natural name. It came transpersonally. So I'm not Irish, but Quinn is Irish, and it came. But as did the name Asher. They both came in a dream, and I've changed them both legally. And Quinn, I then discovered, is an Irish name, and the meaning in Gaelic is "he who constantly soars above." So I thought, well, that fits. Have you come across an Irish historian called Michael Tsarian?
I can't say I have.
He's on the FBI 10 most wanted list of subversive people in the world. And because he retells this, he's written a thing called The History of the Irish Peoples.
Right.
And in it, he talks about the Druids 10,000 years ago in Hibernia and Iberia. So it's that whole western, Spain, northern Portugal, Wales, Brittany, Ireland, Scotland, and all this. He talks about these people, and the Druids were the priests.
Yeah.
And he said, contrary to historical apparency, the Druids migrated eastwards through England, Europe, Central Europe, down towards Egypt and across towards India, taking their shamanism with them. And central to their worship was the river and the yew tree. And as they travelled across Europe, they became known as the people of the yew, or the Jewish people. And then when they got to Israel, and in Hebrew, the J and the Y is an interchangeable sound, so the Jewish people would be the Jewish people. When they got to Israel, they took their sun god, which was called Issa, and the Egyptian sun god was called Ra. So then you had Israel. And so it was actually a sun-worshipping religion that came from Ireland, is the origin of the Judo-Christian tradition. And of course that's why he's on the 10 most wanted list, because it completely fucks the Bible. It's great, isn't it?
It is amazing.
Yeah. Michael Tsarian, Tsarion. It's on YouTube. He's so compelling. The history of the Irish peoples.
Wow. My thanks to Asher for a fantastic interview. If you want to hear more Stir It Up and his other music, do visit his music website, asherquinn.co.uk. And if you want to contact Asher for his therapy, the website is asherquinnpsychotherapy.co.uk.